should not go out. Stay at home. Start working from home. Stop non-essential contact. Protect our NHS. Stay at home. And save lives.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to the first ever Lockdown Diaries. I hope that wasn't too much Boris for you in there in the introduction, but we all like a bit of Boris. And welcome to all those who are joining us on the various channels today. Hello to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, and Twitch. I have no idea what Twitch is, but I think you can get a cream for it. This show is very live. We'll be able to see your comments and questions coming through as they happen. So if you're on wherever you are, stick them all up and I'll put them up on screen as they can, and I'll filter out the inevitable filth. For those of you who've joined us through Crowdcast, you get extra special features, of course. So if you want to ask a question, then pop your question in the little thing at the bottom of your Crowdcast screen that says ask a question, and we'll get through those as we progress, and we'll get through as many as possible. And you can even vote on them so we can see the most popular ones. And at the end, a replay will be available a few minutes after we finish the stream. So if you've missed something, you can have a flick back later. Oh, housekeeping out of the way. Let's get cracking on this. Now, I have a sneaky suspicion that most of you already know today's guest or know of him. I tried to think of an adjective to describe him. I went through a few, including some that I probably shouldn't mention. He's muted, he can't speak, he can't hear him. But I kept reverting back to things like handsome, enigmatic, charming. And then I realised that I probably shouldn't put any adjectives to describe him. But over his 30-year career as a photographer, Jeff has covered more than 1,500 wedding assignments for people from all walks of life, from the girl next door to rock stars and celebrities, and has been hailed by the BBC as one of the top 5 wedding photographers in the world, and one of the 100 most influential photographers of all time by Professional Photographer magazine. He's the only British wedding photographer to be included in American Photo's lists of the 10 best wedding photographers in the world. So he's pretty good at the whole photography thing, if not telling jokes. So let's hope the internet fairies are on our side. This is going to be a disaster. And let's go over live to Lytham, where Jeff sits in his lockdown kingdom. Jeff, please let this work. Are you there?
I am, mate. I'm here.
Ah, marvellous. There we go.
Yeah, having to sit through those jokes. Christ.
That wasn't a joke, Jeff. That was actually... Look, I've even got a little snazzy caption for you. There we go. Look, there you are. So, Jeff, welcome to the inaugural Lockdown Diaries. Thanks for coming on board.
It's my pleasure, mate. Anything I can do to help you?
It takes a lot. Well, we'll jump to this now. Now people can see both of us. So
it's
what
like
was
two,
it? What was saying before?
two boiled eggs
in the pan, isn't it? Look, do that. Marvellous. So here we go. This is exciting. It's a bit weird, but it's exciting. I might pop things up on screen as we talk. So, Jeff, you heard my dazzling introduction to you there. A lot of people know of you for various reasons. I'm not quite sure what some of these comments are, but they might mean something to you. So I'll leave those for later, and we'll pop them up. Hopefully, they're not offensive in the various languages they're coming up in. I have a feeling they might be. So should we start? Well, you know, you're in Lytham. It's quite nice. You do a lot of your work in the area. So should we start by taking a little look at where you are?
Yeah,
and you can sort of you'll talk over your location. So let's have a look at where Jeff lives, or his domain.
Okay, so I live in Lytham St Anne's, which is on the northwest coast of England. We actually live about 300 feet away from this sand dune, I guess. We live in the estuary part of the coast. It's not the seasidey bit. It's more of the sort of naturey bit. So we have lots of sand dunes, lots of grasses, lots of birds, lots of wildlife. But actually, most of my photography, particularly street photography, takes place a lot further up the coast in Blackpool, where this has been shot. Simply because the resort is bigger, there's lots of people there. You can shoot all year round. There's the piers, the town. It's a fantastic place to actually take photographs, and I'm pretty lucky to be able to live here, to be honest. Actually, at Lytham at the moment is complete sort of, I don't know, it's almost like a ghost town. The population here is really quite elderly, and everybody's behaving, everybody's taking the time to social distance and look after themselves. And this was taken a couple of nights back, and to see it so empty is really quite strange at this time of year, especially with the weather we've been having recently. We should be packed out here at this time of year. But it's good because it means people are obeying the social distances and looking after themselves.
There we go. Then back to us. Thank you. So it's pretty nice. And that's how far from your door, do you say?
That's about 300 feet. It's kind of literally straight out the front door, turn right, walk straight down to the
So it's the social
to the
distancing.
beach.
What's the social distancing safe margin to go through?
So
Yeah.
you wouldn't have believed it a few weeks ago. It was chaos here, but yeah,
I can imagine. So you blend in well with the elderly population there, then, Jeff.
I'm beginning to wonder now why I signed up for this.
Well, look, we can do things like this. So this is a little message here. Look, we can put a little message up there. John Fox says, "Hi Jeff, everyone. Hope you're well, keeping safe."
Hi John.
There we go. Hi John. And then we've got a hello. See, we can do. Isn't this clever? We can do things like this.
It's amazing.
Isn't it amazing? And I don't know what this means. I hope it's not offensive. Do you know what that means?
No, I've no idea what he's doing.
Right, let's get rid of it in case it's something rude.
John's probably been drinking again. It's
Right, again.
He's known for it.
Is he a photographer? Is he a photographer?
Yeah, he is.
No, that won't surprise me. And then if he's been
himself
drinking,
he's
that's
really
not
good,
right.
actually.
This is what what does lockdown meant for you? Basically, 3 letters: gin. Should we have a look then, at sort of more towards where you're locked down?
Where I am at the minute. Yeah.
Let's have a peek inside your house, shall we?
Okay, yeah, sure. So where the little cars are halfway down that street, that's our street. Our house is down there. This is where I am currently at the moment. So our house, 1950s house, typical of the area. When we bought it 10 years ago, it needed a lot of renovation. So we've done a lot of work to the place. But the main thing for us with this house was not only its location to the front, but also the light. And if anybody lives by the coast, they'll know exactly what I mean. The light is just amazing. And when we first viewed this house, it was the light that was the thing that sold it to us, especially at this time of year. It's absolutely tremendous. A lot of the things that we've tried to keep, we're trying to keep the feel of the sort of the 50s house. We've also got lots of pictures up in our dining room, which you're seeing now. We've got all my book collection. I think there's about 220 odd books in there at the moment. Everything from photojournalism through to fashion, through to war photography. The whole gamut is in that room, really. It's not my favourite room in the house. Oh, and there's our dog who's still going. We thought we weren't going to see him, but he's still here, bless him. He's still there.
Seems.
11 years old he is in a couple of weeks. Incredible. This is my other domain, really. This is where I like to spend a lot of time. This is my man cave, I suppose you'd like to call it. It's actually my guitar room. This is where I keep my guitars, amps, pedals, that kind of thing, and make an unholy racket when the mood takes me. I don't do this professionally. I'm just a keen amateur musician, I guess.
There we go. So, thank you for the little peek in your man cave.
You're the first person to see that.
It's what?
You're the first person that's ever seen that.
Me?
Outside the family. Yeah. Oh, no,
there's about a lot of people that have probably just seen that, to be fair.
I just realised that nobody's ever seen that before. Nobody's ever seen my guitar room before.
I've seen a couple of photos pop up on Facebook of amps and
but
things.
Not actually. Oh well, never mind. Okay, cool.
Anyway, so you're in your cave.
The minute.
But obviously where the magic happens somewhere else, right? You've got your toys, which we all need. You've got your house. You've got your hairless. Is that a dog with no hair? Or is it just albino dog? What's the deal with it? It's a
bull terrier. It shows how much you know about animals.
Oh, it looks like a dog with no hair. Hairless
it's
dog.
Bull terrier.
I know it's like a trendy thing. It's dog with no hair. Like, kind of, does he? Is it because they say that dogs look like their owners?
Yeah, well, have you thought of a Chinese crested Brit?
I don't know what that means, but I guess it's offensive. All right, so let's push on a little bit because there's been lots of people saying hello. which is great. Which is they've got from Wisconsin. We've got people here, Singapore, North Carolina, Romania, Italy,
Beautiful place. Yep. They'll know what
Washington,
we're going
USA. It's just like a place of hands up who's in lockdown poll, isn't it?
It is.
And then we've got someone who says, love you, Jeff. So there's at least there's one. Okay, so should we take a peek into your where real work happens, shall we say?
Yeah,
should we have a little look?
Work, yeah.
So when there is work, this is where it happens. Let's roll the VT, as they say on the trade.
Okay, so this is where I work from. This is a very narrow but quite a long space. It's custom built. It's where I do all post-processing, do all the printing, do all the framing. I like to surround myself with photography. So even here, even though this room is dark most of the time, I still have lots of photographs on the wall, stuff by Antonin Kratochvil, Ian Berry, Marcus Anderson, Alex Webb. It's a really nice place to actually sit and actually do some work when we have some work, of course.
Alrighty, there we go, and we're back. So there's a peek into Jeff's world, I guess. We've seen what your lockdown world looks like. It looks fairly, looks like a fairly nice place to sit and not do much, I suppose. So what are you actually doing during lockdown then?
It's been really interesting because when we first knew we were going to be locked down, it was a case of trying to decide what's the best thing to do, and we could have either just sat at home and I'm at home anyway, but just sat in the front room and watched Netflix or whatever. But I decided no, you've got to keep going forward, and if you kind of stop, then it's very difficult to pick that momentum up when everything will eventually return to some sort of normality. So like a lot of photographers who I've been helping with over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been doing website designs. I've been improving everything on my sort of the back end here, looking at portfolios. We've been updating all the SEO. It's just being all those things which we need to be put in place before work starts again, I guess. One of the things that I've really been enjoyed doing is helping the other photographers, because there are some that really need to take a look at their websites and have a look at their portfolio. So that's been taking up quite a bit of my time as well, which has been really good. But for me, I think the thing when we come back out of this, whenever that may be, I want to be in a position where we don't have to catch up. We're kind of ahead of the curve, I guess, and that's kind of what I've been doing. So I've actually been as busy now as I have been prior to the lockdown.
And how many times have you edited old photographs? Because that's what a lot of photographers seem to be sitting there doing, is going through their archives. Have you been going back and doing stuff?
Yeah, because you kind of look it back, and I went through some. I don't know. Whenever I do a new website design, I always upgrade the photographs anyway, because I want all the pictures to look the same. So I tend to re-edit those pictures actually in terms of processing those pictures anyway. But yeah, I've been kind of looking through some old archives, particularly for Instagram, because obviously there's no new work going through. So it was a good time to go back and look through the old archives, and we've got some film images coming up and things like that, stuff that I hadn't seen for quite a number of years. But for me, it's great because I see what I did then and see what I did now, and even though it's the same kind of style of work, what I see myself doing now, to me at this moment in time, is the same but slightly different. It's more kind of, I'll come on to that in a minute when we look at some pictures.
Yeah, I was going to say. So should we? It's a nice little segue here into our new section of because obviously you're as my beautiful opening demonstrated. I totally had you muted because I knew you'd be like, I could hear in my ear giving me jip about what I was saying, and I'm so happy that I had the call on mute while I was doing that. So, but you're obviously your most of your career has been weddings, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
I mean, and a lot of people who know me know my feelings on wedding photography. I don't know how you do it. I generally don't. I can't deal with people.
I have no hair, mate. I have no hair.
Well, no, neither have I, and I don't shoot weddings, but I can't deal with people in that level of stress. And it's
okay. The stress is brought on by the photographers not being prepared. The wedding is never
the people that are
stressed.
stressed, the bride and the groom and the families and all
Yeah, but
dealing
you
with
kind
actual
of-
people rather than corporates. I'm not so fun. Anyway, by the by, no one cares what I think. But so you've moved on and you're now shooting street.
yeah,
Gone to shoot
yeah.
street.
Streets become a big part of what I do. Obviously, we still do the weddings, but a street has kind of become part of what I am as a photographer, I guess now. And the irony is that all the time I've been shooting weddings, I've actually been shooting street style pictures on the weddings. I just hadn't realized that's what it was. So it's kind of an interesting thing for me now, and I've been doing it for properly 5 to 6 years. I've been actually physically going out to specifically take street pictures rather than just walking around with a camera, to actually have that level of actually wanting to do it almost professionally, I guess, if you can have a professional street photographer, if there's such a thing. That's the kind of thing that I actually I really want to do sort of creatively and artistically now.
Do you think a lot of... sorry.
Sorry, Rick, but the beauty of it is that it's related to weddings anyway. Everything that I do on the street has a relationship to how I shoot on a wedding. So
I was going to say, do you... I forgot what the bloody question was now. Can't be important. It's probably a load of rubbish. Right, so...
Stick the pictures on, mate. Stick the pictures on.
Let's have a peek at the stuff you've done there. So here we go. Let's see if this works. Here we go. Right,
Fantastic.
let's talk us through, Mr. Jeff.
Okay, so my wedding work, the sort of more recent wedding work has become a little bit... I started off very much as a photographer that wanted to be like a Cartier-Bresson, that wanted to do a lot of compositional, clever things, and had lots of squares and lines and shapes and things involved. And I did that for years and years and years. And then sort of around 2012, I came back from France and I decided I'd been shooting street for a project Canon were doing in France. And I've been shooting street and landscapes there and came back and thought, you know what, this is I can add this into what I'm doing as a photographer, particularly with weddings. And I started to introduce more of a kind of a street style, a more looser style, I guess, a more reactive style of photography into my work. And this picture here is quite a good example of that. It's a bridal party walking back to the reception from the church through London. And it's a little bit blurry. It's got the lines. It's got a little bit of reflection in there. And it was the kind of thing that when I started to see these kind of pictures, I kind of thought, yeah, this is where I am now. This is what I want to kind of shoot going forward from this kind of moment onwards. Okay, so if you go on to the next slide.
Yeah.
Okay, this has always been my sort of key thing as a wedding photographer, this whole black and white, sort of light, dark, shade, a little bit of sort of lots of use of light and backlight and flare, that kind of thing. That's always been my kind of thing. I've always wanted photographs to actually have a little bit of art to them, but also be journalistic at the same time, but not snapshots. I've never wanted my pictures to look like a guest had taken them. I've always wanted to have something a little bit different. And going back in time, when I was going back through the archive, we were looking through a lot of the old film images, and they were very much kind of like this kind of image here, which is, that kind of feel to it. Just go on to the next one for me.
Yeah. We have got a question that's come in, which maybe or maybe not relevant in a minute. So should we ask this question now? So Bill has asked, I'm going to start answering this. So Bill says, as I'm getting older, it seems to be more of an issue to the brides, even though my work is better than ever. I'm not quite sure what's
the age.
Age being. Oh, his age, right? Have you been experiencing any of this? Seems I'm getting older, but the brides are not. I guess brides don't really get any older unless you do a lot of geriatric weddings.
I guess it will depend on the style. I don't know. I've yet to experience it. I started off when I was younger than the brides, and now I'm where I am now at 52, and I'm older than the brides. So there has been a change. But I think with the change comes a change in the way that you act and behave around brides. Okay, when you kind of have, you can't be hands-on with a bride like you could at sort of 22, 23, 24. Okay, you've got to be kind of, for me, more standoffish and a little bit more going back into what I actually enjoy doing, which is the photojournalistic style. So what we're finding now is the brides that we have come through are purely wanting this photojournalistic style. So the age from that point of view doesn't really come into it because, you know, we're not there being shown off or we're not telling people what to do and this kind of thing. So it's kind of the age isn't so much of an issue as it probably could be if I was a photographer that was posing people and telling them where to stand and get to each other and that kind of thing, or, you know, so I think from that point of view, it's not such a problem if you're a photojournalistic style of photographer. And I also think as well that with age comes great experience, and photojournalistically, the experience is as important as the eye. Being able to anticipate things and being able to see things before they happen is all part of age and all part of experience and all part of the way that you've lived your life. And I think that for me, being older is actually a big advantage in that respect.
Excellent. And then we have a lovely comment that's popped up here from someone, and this is their Facebook comment. Is there we go. How are you going to react to that, Jeff?
Hands on with the bride, yeah. back in the day, Jack. Back in the day, we used to. Everything was.
Did you warm? But the question was, did you warm your hands before you got?
Oh, was it warm the hands? Yeah. Yeah. It was
that's another show entirely. Anyway, should we go back to the? Well, we're going to put Jack's comment back up there. Let's back on where we were with these photos.
Yeah, so, let's go on to the next one.
Let me. Here we go. Hang on, I've lost my place because I'm completely responsible. Here we go. There you go. Okay,
so this now for me is much more the type of work that I'm wanting to do. It's a little bit more abstract. It's a little bit more, I don't know, surreal is the wrong word, but it's kind of more. See, what's happened is over time is people have become more and more in tune with their phone cameras, and guests are taking so many pictures at weddings now, and the cameras are getting better and better. That a sort of standard photojournalistic picture switch to black and white is going to be something that most people can get in terms of the feel. They might not get the right moment, they might not get the right light, they might not get the right kind of they might just miss it completely, but they kind of, when you're looking at the pictures, black and white photojournalistic pictures that some of the guests take or whatever, they can look very similar to a lot of photographers. So I've tried to kind of move my way away from that a little bit and try something that's a little bit more I guess artistic, I suppose, is the right word you use to describe it. Something that's got a little bit more ambiguity to it, something that's a little bit more sort of risky, I guess. And this is a bride just walking back to, this is a picture I wouldn't have taken 10 years ago. It's the bride going from one room to the other room where she's going to put a dress on, walking down a corridor. I wouldn't have taken this picture. But now, to me, it's different. It's, you know, she's not in a dress, she's got her hair up, she's got the mirrors either side, you know, her foot's just lifting off the floor. And it's completely sort of just taken very, very quickly, seen the photograph, take it and move on. And that's something I would have never have done even sort of 10 years ago. I would have had to wait for the moment to happen. Now I'm just trying to find the moment as they're starting to go through it. If you go on to the next one, there's a really good example, actually. This is one of my favorite pictures I've taken in recent years. Not that one, the other one. There you go. This is a bride just getting into a car. And traditionally, I would have gone and taken the bride getting into a car. But I'm always looking for something that's a little bit different now. So in this particular case, I'm really into the photographer Dido Moriana at the moment. This whole idea of putting a load of ambiguity into a frame. So make the viewer look at the frame and try and decipher what's actually happening in the frame. Okay, it's almost like Ralph Giverson's done it for years, and William Klein before him. It's the whole idea that you're just trying to make people look and produce something which is completely different to what everybody else is producing. And by everybody else, I don't mean just other photographers, but I also mean guests as well. So here I've just gone around the other side of the car, put my camera against the window, but left enough so I could see the reflection of the sun and the sky and the houses and everything around it. And now we've got something which is a completely different take on what would I have taken previously, which would have been a standard bride getting into a car shot at home. Okay, if you move on to the next one. Okay. And this to me again it's kind of funny opportunity is the talking about hands on and hands off. The amount of times that you get asked, can you come and do this? Can you come and do that? As a photographer over the years, you know, can you fix Dad's tie? Can you fix Dad's flower? Can you do this kind of thing? My preference is not to get involved. And going back to the age question that was asked earlier on, I could stand away now and just watch what happens. And here we've got a bridesmaid just putting Dad's tie on, Mum in the foreground and so on. If I was there helping out, which I would have done when I was younger, I wouldn't have got that photograph. So being able to stand off and just being able to observe is such a big thing for me at the moment. It's really kind of something I'm really trying to do more of. Okay, let's go on to the next one, Rick. Okay, and one of the most important things, certainly in my wedding work, and still going forward, is this idea of wedding pictures on the periphery of the wedding. Every picture doesn't have to be of the bride and groom. And years ago, I actually was in a print competition. This is many years ago, probably 20 plus years ago. I put some images into a print competition, and the judge disqualified them because they didn't have a bride and groom in them. And when I queried it, and they said, well, a wedding photograph has to have a bride and groom in it. And okay, fine, whatever. But that's sort of the mentality that a lot of the industry has. And for me, this photograph really epitomizes, what I like to do, as a photographer. It's a documentary photograph. It's a wedding photograph because there's a bride very small in the background, and it was taken on a wedding. But intrinsically, it's a documentary photograph, and that's what my work is really all about. Okay, do you want to scoot to the next one? Okay, and the other thing that's most important as well is this idea of telling a story. This is the bride with her son, but the most important part of this picture is the priest in the background with the register and the pen, okay, because it tells the viewer what part of the wedding day this is. So the connection between the two figures in the foreground is great, but the priest in the background is what makes the picture, because it actually tells the viewer where this is, what's happening, and what time of day it is. And that's something which I've been, again, working with photographers over the last 2 or 3 weeks, looking at portfolios and so on. A lot of photographers will concentrate on the moment, but never give the moment any sort of context. And this goes back to sort of a whole kind of documentary thing rather than being a wedding photographer. Okay, let's go on to the next one, buddy.
We have got. Should we answer a question?
Answer the
question. So I'll put you back into shot there. So we have, while you're having a drink. So we have a question here. What's your favourite camera for wedding? While we're on wedding photography, what's your favourite camera for wedding photography, and your most used lens? And that's from Margarita.
I've used Canon since '94. This year, I was moving over to Lumix, Panasonic Lumix. But at the moment, we haven't had a chance to actually shoot anything in terms of weddings with Lumix. So as it stands at this moment in time, it would still be Canon. But when we start kicking up again, the chances are it's probably going to be Lumix. And at the moment, with regard to Canon, I'm using 5 series, 5D Mark IV. Favorite lens, probably the 85mm. I guess 85 is what I've shot most of my most pleasing pictures on, I guess. But I use all sorts of lenses. It's not the only one that I use.
Marvellous. All right. Should we flick back to those
Yep,
pictures?
Go on to the next one.
Where we were. Okay, we've done that one. So we'll look at this one.
Okay, back onto the 85. This is an 85mm image as it came up. So was the previous one, actually. The one of the girl with the son. That was 85 as well. So this is 85 image. This is, to me, is one of those pictures which you kind of get once in 4, 5, 6 years. I don't know. The whole idea of just walking around taking pictures and not getting involved gives you the opportunity just to go and look for photographs. And my wife Sarah shoots with me at weddings, so that gives us even more scope to go and please ourselves with what we want to do as photographers. By the way, Sarah's a better wedding photographer than I am. I know she's listening, but she is. I'm just going to say that now and get that out of the way. But yeah, she's absolutely phenomenal. But what she's allowed me to do is when she started taking pictures, she allowed me an enormous amount of freedom because I haven't got to be here, there, and everywhere taking photographs. So I can look for moments like this. So you've got here, you don't want to look at me, you want to look at the picture. Put the picture up, Rick.
I wanted to put you up while you were being humble about your wife.
Oh,
of course. So I wanted to see a single solitary tear dripping from the corner of your eye.
Put the picture up, Rick. Just put the picture up. Jesus Christ! Honestly,
he hates the fact I've got control. He can't deal with it at all.
I know. This is well out of my comfort zone. Having you in control as well. It's just like, oh yeah, man. It's like having a mad puppet master. It's just. waiting
should
for
see.
something weird.
You know
to
what?
happen.
We've got. While we're on this, while we've taken a little, you've got to answer this. We've got this here.
Go on then.
I've got a question. I've actually got this question. Right. I'm gonna put you in vision so we can see the reaction to it as we go. Right. So,
Right, go on.
and I know who's asked this. I'm gonna read it out. Okay. So, I'm gonna click the box here. So the question is, you and Rick look like you make a wonderful couple. If you ever did decide to finally tie the knot, who would you choose as your celebrity wedding photographer? That's from Katsy, who's asked that on Crowdcast. It's been well worth. I'm glad I invested in the software. So someone who's known me for a long time can ask a question. Right. So are we going to answer that, or should we just move back on to the question?
It would take
who would you
wedding,
choose?
Well, I'm married. I can't. I don't know.
Well,
All
let's
right,
just
go
say
Helena.
let's just say
go to Helena. Let's go to Helena. If Helena was getting married tomorrow, who would I ask to do the wedding pictures? Oh God, I don't know.
I could think of a few who you wouldn't ask. To be fair.
Well, no, yes, there is that. I don't know.
Quite a lot.
You know what I'd probably do? I'd probably get a couple. I'd probably get my good friend Marcus Anderson from Australia to go and just shoot stuff as he sees fit, and I'd probably get my other good friend also from Australia, also called Marcus Bell, probably to do the other stuff. But then it's Helen's wedding.
Only
so
take photographs of your daughter's wedding if you're called Marcus. Is that how
yeah,
it works?
it's weird, isn't it? But one's with a K, one's with a C.
Right.
But it's Helena's wedding, so Helena being Helena would probably get some, I don't know, arty, probably an arty out-of-work actor to come and shoot the wedding for her.
There's plenty of those around at the moment, that's for sure. Well, that's that one. Well, okay, there we go.
She'll kill me for saying that, by the way.
It's only live. What doesn't matter? I was going. You know what? My memory is completely shut. So let's crack on with the photos. We'll go back.
Okay,
to
buddy. I forget where we were now. We're to yes. There we go. Right. Okay. So going back. No, not the one behind. The one in front.
No. All right.
So where was I saying? Yeah. I was saying right. Sarah. So since Sarah's been shooting with me, obviously it's been great. It's been allowed me to do all sorts of different things and pictures like this where you just see the moment with the kid and his legs match the chairs and his body shape is lovely and you've got the lady in the background having a cigarette and that smoke's not from the cigarette, by the way.
The chair's on fire.
It just looks on the small screen like she's on fire, but she's not. It's just something in front. But those sort of things now are great because you can just go with the flow and just take pictures. It's a phenomenal thing to do these days. Okay, if you go on to the next one now, which you were being a bit premature about.
Sorry, I'm always speaking too soon. Story of my life.
So I've heard.
Yeah, well, if you insist on reading those sorts of publications.
So anyway, on this one here, I was taught a long time ago, you can't have things going through people's faces, and I forget who told me that now.
I've got to make a joke about. I was going to make a terrible joke then. No. It was a joke about the guy from Lower Low years ago.
People won't understand. You'll get lost in translation. It'll be a mess. Just stay as you are. Right.
All right. Okay.
So anyway, this photograph here. Montreux, and that's Lake Geneva, and you got the mountains in the background. And it was kind of one of these sort of transitional moments for me because I was inside and I was taking the photographs of the bride having her makeup done, and I thought, how many times have I shot the bride doing a makeup like this? And let's try and do something different. So I went outside onto a balcony with a wide-angle lens, took the photograph. The line's gone straight through her eyes. But for me, that's what makes the photograph. It kind of brings the whole vision into, that part of the picture, which is basically her eyes. And the picture itself, that line has also split the picture between inside and outside. So you've got this whole story in one frame. But to take a photograph like that, that's ambiguous like that, and goes against so many sort of rules of wedding photography, for me was a real turning point. It's something I thought, yeah, you know what, this is actually kind of cool to shoot like this. And if you go on to the next one, okay, and this again, this is one of, I really like this photograph. It's almost the same time of year as we are now. We've got low spring sunshine. It's in London. I'm in one cab. They're in the other cab. I'm shooting through my window into their window. We're getting kind of a silhouette going on here. Lots of ambiguity with the light and everything. But for me, that has so much atmosphere. Rather than a sort of traditional picture of the sort of bridesmaids, leaving to go to church. Okay, that's the wedding section done. If you want to go to street, we'll have a look on street. Okay, you've got fading through a little bit. Okay, there you go. See the next picture underneath, but we'll run with it. Okay. There we go. Fantastic. Right. So street photography, like I say, came around sort of 2012. I was in France shooting a lot of street pictures. Found I really enjoyed the freedom it gave me. And each year, both myself and Sarah, we go somewhere to go and shoot. We either hold workshops there, or we go and shoot. If we've got a wedding in an area, we'll go and spend several days down there shooting street pictures. And there was two reasons why we kind of did this. The first reason was when Sarah started shooting with me, she was absolutely desperate to go and take photographs, and she still is now. You can't. She's like a caged tiger at the moment because she can't go out and shoot. So basically, she just wanted to shoot, and street was the way that we could go somewhere, take our cameras, and go and take pictures. And once you start shooting more and more of it, you suddenly see that the influences that you get from how you shoot, in my case, weddings, started to impact on the street, and it works the other way around. So you start seeing things, you start taking risks with street photography that then transpire into what you're shooting with the wedding. So the two are kind of harmonious, you know. So going back to that picture, this was taken on a beach in Devon, and this kind of thing is one of the things I like to do, sort of like visual gymnastics. Really, it's trying to get little people in positions all in one frame. You know, it's kind of like the whole concept of decisive moment. So everybody's doing something in the frame at the same time, and it's kind of done that visual gymnastic kind of idea. If you go on to the next picture,
I can.
which we're trying to go to the next picture. There we go.
This
is the complete opposite. This is far more random. It's far more intuitive. It's very fast. I mean, that previous picture, I probably stayed there for probably 2 or 3 minutes.
Stop shaking your head, Jeff, because you're rattling your mic.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
So it's all your jewellery.
I'm rattling the mic, yeah. So anyway, so this picture is a complete opposite. This is shot almost from the hip. It's taken as I've seen a picture, shot, move on, without paying it too much of attention. And for me, it's something which is more interesting after years and years of seeing certain pictures a certain way. This is far more interesting in terms of something visual for me. And if you go on to the next picture, this is a combination of the two. So you've got where I'm waiting for something to happen, but still have that visual ambiguity as the guy walks past, and we've got the two hands up, you know, the guy pointing and the guy in the mural pointing, just as he's walking past. And I'm probably, well, I know how much 2 meters is now. I was basically 2 meters away from this guy, taking this photograph with a wide angle lens, and it's paying me no attention. It was just a really cool kind of picture. And if you go on to the next one, this is a similar situation. I'm actually a little bit closer here with a 24mm lens, and we just come out of the rain. We were in Oxford, and we just come out of the rain near the Bodleian, and everybody jumped underneath these archways to try and stay out, you know, stop getting wet. And these two ladies came in, and this lady kind of took her umbrella down, shook it, and just kind of sighed almost. You know, she kind of thought, oh, you know, the rain. And that was the picture. I just kind of photographed it. And yet for me, it's the light's beautiful, the contrast, the texture's lovely, everything about it is really kind of cool to my eye. And I think to myself, when you take pictures like this, it's really fulfills something artistically within you. If you go on to the next one, unless there's any more questions at the moment.
You know what? Do this one, and then we've got a couple of. We'll do a couple of questions because I think they're relevant. So you go and talk us through this one.
Okay. This was done on a workshop I was holding with Sarah last year for some students, and it was really about the whole concept of looking at structure within the photograph in terms of the background. So this is in Blackpool. So you've got all these lines and squares and triangles and shapes. And the whole idea is that when you first start street photography, the best way of starting is not to just hit everything hard and go randomly. It's the same with weddings. Don't hit everything hard and just try and shoot everything. Just take your time and look for a structure in a picture. And you're better off getting a well-structured photograph than you are a million haphazard snapshots. So this was really sort of the whole idea of laying a structure down for a photograph and then allowing something to play out within that structure. And this is one of the most successful ones I've actually done within that sort of time frame, get these two guys coming across. But really, it's about the structure in the background. Okay, do you want to answer some questions?
Yeah. So let's pop up a question. We've got a question here. I'll pop it up on the screen. Actually, this is quite an interesting one. So Dino, I think that's how it's pronounced. Can you see that? It says, "How do you cope with failure?"
Failure is a funny thing. It's the fear of failure is worse than actually coping with failure. It's you can be terrified of something going wrong. A bit like when I was asked to do this with Rick. You don't know if my reputation's going to be in the toilet after this, or you've no idea. So you take a risk. But the fear is obviously worse than the actual failure. And I think the times that we live in now have actually made people realize that failure isn't as bad as maybe it could be. Health is more important, and your family are more important, and how you live your life is more important. But in terms of failure, there are certain people who will go to pieces, and there are certain people who pick themselves up, dust themselves down, and then go again and try and react to that. And I've always told my daughter, when my daughter's been growing up, because she's an actress, and it's you think photography is hard, you should be trying the acting profession, and if she doesn't get a part or whatever, you always, or she makes a mistake or something, the first thing I always say to her is, if you make a mistake, learn from it. So if you class failure as a mistake, which a lot of people probably would, just learn from it. Why did I fail? Let's see why, if I do it again, am I not going to fail, further down the line? And it's just a learning experience, which is what life is. But if you're thinking about failure before you've even started, then it becomes very tiring, whether you're a photographer or whatever you do. You've just got to go and enjoy what you do, and enjoy the moment, enjoy being in that moment, and enjoy taking photographs, and don't worry about the rest of it. That's irrelevant for most of the time.
I've got a nice comment here. I don't know if you remember, one of your ex-clients has just popped up on there.
Oh, hi, Lisa. Yeah. Everybody's all right with you guys. It's 2005, man. That's
a long time ago. Let's move on from that's 15 years ago. Excellent. Right. Well, we've got a few more questions that have popped up.
I was actually looking at Lisa's pictures the other day. Actually, I might pop one up on Instagram, Lisa, over the next couple of weeks. So just keep your eye out for that on the Thursday one, where I'll go back in time a little bit on Instagram. It's fantastic.
And following on from your failure, Jonathan's got a nice comment there, which is quite nice, quite true. Go for whatever it is. Don't hold back.
Very much so. Yeah, it's very much so. Life's short, and you have to really grab it and go forward with it.
And which is interesting.
That's what it is. Don't you start being rude again. You can't help yourself. It's like it's like the two Ronnies, isn't it? It's worse than the two Ronnies.
All right. Let's go back to it. We've got some questions that are coming off Crowdcast, but they're kind of wedding based. So we'll hit those up at the end. I think when we've covered
that's
it.
Fine. Yeah, we'll go.
Should we? Let's take a look at your other stuff now, shall we? Where were we up to? So, hello. Turn you off again. I don't know why. It's very sensitive, just like me. Here we go.
Sensitive, like hemorrhoids.
Well, at least it's like something. Seriously, did you? I can't believe you managed to shoehorn hemorrhoids in at 43 minutes into the broadcast.
You said sensitive, never mind. This is going down.
No, I'm going to buy you. Let's move on.
Okay,
talk about the photo, Jeff. Talk about the photo. Eyes on the prize. Come on.
So in complete contrast to that previous picture. Okay, so we've got again something that is a lot more random, a lot more haphazard. It's shooting into the sun. It's almost on the fly. And for me, if you look back at I won't confuse you by looking back, but the shot with the two guys walking past each other. To me, after I've had that picture now for probably 6 months, it's kind of boring. But the picture here, I still look back.
It wasn't this one, was it?
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
See, I can do it. See?
Yeah, very good.
I know that.
So go back to the other one. All
right, you just want me to go back to that one? Make your mind up.
Yeah, but no, go back to the
artists are so precious. Oh yeah.
Right, there you go. So this one here is much more exciting. The more you look at the photograph, you see more things in it. So it's kind of again like this departure away from what I was kind of doing. He was a street photographer. And if you go on to the next one, yay. Okay, you go on to the next one. This one here, which was shot last year, this is very typical of how I kind of almost shoot a wedding image these days.
I've not missed one, have I?
You what, sorry?
Did I miss one?
No.
Okay,
no,
right.
You're fine.
Just okay.
You're fine.
Sorry.
Yeah. So this one here is the whole reflection thing going off, which I use quite a lot now in the wedding work. But again, it's very much an ambiguous kind of image, but it shows lots and lots of layers within the image. And it's just completely taken, like it's just walking past, take the photograph, move on. Let's see what else we can see around the next corner. Okay, we switch to the next one. And this is very similar. This is in Oxford. My two most favorite places in the world to go and take street photographs, Oxford and Blackpool. They're worlds apart, but they never fail to produce really great photographs. This is just a bus going past, and it's photographed. I've got to think how I photograph this.
Why Oxford? Out of interest, of all the places, what's Oxford got that Cambridge doesn't have, or any other?
It's got the bustle. It's not like London, where there's too much bustle. There seems to be the right amount of bustle in London. In Oxford. You've also got the huge amount of tourists that come in. Each year from Far East and from Europe and so on. So you've got a real melting pot of cultures, particularly around the school holiday times. So you could probably have 10 different nationalities on one bus. You've also got the beautiful architecture. I mean, I like Oxford anyway. Oxford is probably one of the only places I'd ever move to if I ever moved from here, but which I'm not going to. But if I did, that would be probably one of the other places I would go to. But it just never fails to produce really interesting pictures. And this is just a bus stop, the bus is pulled up and you've got a woman in the foreground and you've got a woman that's reflected at the bus stop and so on. So this kind of thing for me is really kind of interesting. It looks really, really, it's really cool. It's something that's a little bit different. If you go on to the next one, buddy. Okay. And this one here, again, is just spontaneous. It's just I saw the picture, just took the photograph and moved on. And you got the guy who's talking to, very much like me now, holding the microphone up, talking to whoever he's talking to, but the body language of the two people on the benches makes it for me, and the guy lurking in the background, and it's just a moment. And what street just allowed me to do, particularly when we go back to the wedding side of things, is it gives you the confidence to actually take risks and to shoot, from the hip sometimes, without just going almost through instinct, just taking images as you see them very quickly. And that to me has really rounded out sort of the kind of the wedding coverages that we like to do now. Okay, do you want to go on to the last one and then we'll talk about the weddings? Okay, so the other thing that that I'm doing at the moment, it's practically we, because it's always the royal we with, what I'm doing at the moment is I'm practicing a lot with longer lenses. I'm really trying to look at the whole idea of compressing, particularly with micro four thirds cameras and I'm using Leica lenses on them, but I'm using Leica telephoto lenses on micro four thirds camera bodies and getting this whole idea of compression and different layers within an image. So this is Blackpool. It was taken just before the lockdown. You've got the sea coming in, creating the patterns on the sand there. But that guy has got to be probably a quarter of a mile away. But the actual compression of the lens brings him into the main part of the frame, and then everything else works from that on. So that's something that I was starting to get into before we got locked down, and obviously something that I'll continue to do when we come out of it. Sweet. Okay, do you want to hit those questions?
Sure, well, we've got a question here actually. This came in a few seconds ago. There we go, from Karan. He said, "Weddings or street? Where's your heart?" How do we feel about that?
The heart is in, as I said earlier on, I've shot weddings for 30 years. Okay, it can't not be in my heart to shoot weddings for that amount of time and keep wanting to do it. Okay, if I didn't, I'd go and do something else. I think the thing with street now is street is allowing me to explore different avenues. So artistically, I would have to say that at this point in time, street is really quite exciting to me. But having said that, when it comes to weddings, I would say I've probably been shooting street style images on weddings for 25 years. So I think the two are combined. I don't think you can separate one from the other. I think for me personally, if I go to a wedding, I go to a wedding like I'm going to shoot a bunch of street pictures. And I think that's the difference.
And have you always seen it as that? Or have you only just realised that since you started shooting street?
It's kind of, I've always wanted to be a photographer. Weddings sort of came along almost by accident. And sort of 94, 95, I kind of wanted to go in a different direction. I wanted to become much more documentary because I didn't like wedding photography. I mean, I didn't like having to go to a church on an afternoon and spend 4 hours posing people. That wasn't what I wanted to do. For me, that wasn't what being a photographer was. That's almost like photography by numbers. You have this pose, you set them up in this pose, and then you move on to that pose, and you set them up in that pose. And to me, I got very bored of that very quickly. So I always wanted to shoot documentary images, and and street is just a form of documentary, same as
we have a few questions that are wedding-y. Do you want to? Are we going to flick back to your photos and go through the rest of those?
No, it's fine because we've only got a couple from the lockdown, so we'll just.
All right, fine. So we've got one here, which we've kind of talked about. I think what's your approach to the bride and groom? But I kind of think you kind of covered that, didn't you, with you getting hands-on. Here's one from Jeffrey. I think it's a he, she. I can't see a little picture. Jeffrey, I guess it's a guy. Your decisive moment shots are amazing, but what about the other shots that are much more formal? Do you do the post-formal shots after the ceremony? Have you ever had an instance where you were hired for spontaneous shots, yet the bride and groom and families kept asking for posed and static?
Yes. It's kind of what happens typically for us is that the client will come to us because they want a certain look to their pictures. They want to spend the majority of their wedding day without having to have their photograph taken, without having to stand for pictures. And we say this even with clients come into us and they say to us, we love the way you and Sarah work. We love all the documentary stuff, but Mum wants to have a picture of the family. Okay. And I'll just say, yeah, that's no problem. Well, as long as it doesn't take any more than sort of 15 minutes, for the family groups, I'm quite happy to do them. But I always try and do them in what we call like a dead moment. So you have like the ceremony, then everybody goes out onto for the drinks reception, and then everybody wants to see the bride and groom. So that's the worst time to take formal pictures. The best time to take formal pictures for us is kind of half an hour before they're due to be called into the meal, because everybody's run out of steam by then. Everybody's spoken to the bride and groom. They've all had a drink. Yeah, they've all had a drink. They're all a little bit more relaxed. They're all a little bit more amenable, and they all want to get in. So they're not going to hang around to spend all day having their picture taken. So it takes a little bit of organisation, and we make sure the clients are aware of what time it's going to happen and make sure the ushers have got everybody together. Doesn't always happen. Sometimes somebody's disappeared and we have to go and find them. But that's generally how we do it. We always try to keep the numbers of groups to a close family and maybe a couple of groups of the friends. That's what we try and keep them down to.
Not massive.
And bride and groom pictures about 10 minutes, if that.
Yeah, sure. Right. Well, here's a good one. I like this one. I know where this is going to go. So, also from Jeffrey. So he gets the 2 questions answered. I just got an email from the bride who told me she has to look into catering first to see how much she'll have left over for photography. Here we go. I feel insulted. Should I feel that way, or should my skin be thicker?
No. It's
no. What? No, he shouldn't feel that way.
No, he shouldn't feel that way. The thing is, we're photographers. So photographers, we think we're the most important thing on the wedding day. The amount of times I've heard people pitch that at brides, we're the most important thing. Not necessarily. You are expecting people from the general public to have priorities which involve photography, and they might not. They might be foodies. Food is the most. I've done weddings like that where food is the most important thing, or the music is the most important thing, or the venue is the most important thing, and clients are happy with photographs which they can get for a certain budget, because the photographs aren't the most important thing to them in terms of the wedding, and you just accept that. Just. It's
not. I don't think it's for weddings. I have this with my corporate clients. They'll book everything. They'll book fire breathing pandas, acrobatics, jugglers, all that, all works, which add a lot of texture and excitement to the event. But actually, they then go, oh, I've not got any money for a photographer. I'm like, well, you've spent all the money on showcasing whatever they're showcasing, keeping everyone excited, but then they'll have nothing to take away at the end because they're quite happy to swan around with an iPhone or whatever. And it used to annoy me. It used to annoy me a little bit. And I thought, well, actually, if they don't see the value in it, what's the point? I can't, if they don't see the value in having professional photos or professional video being taken, there's no point in me like hammering at the door all the time, because they're just not going to go for it regardless of what I say. If that's their mindset, that's their mindset. I guess you have to sort of de-learn that. And it's not, I don't think you should be insulted. I just think that then you maybe say, look, well, this is what your value is, and if you don't want me, that's fine, and then you move on, I think.
Yeah, you have to, because there's especially today when there's so many photographers out there, and if you add in all the people at the wedding, there's so many more photographers. So you've got people prioritize something different, to some it's the most important thing on the wedding day is the dress, to some it's the flowers, to some it's the food. I'd like to think that
it'd always be you. If it was my wedding, Jeff, you'd always be my priority.
I'd refuse it, mate. I wouldn't do it.
We've got a question that's coming off Facebook,
I'm not that
actually.
desperate, it's fine.
I don't know. John on Facebook, I don't know how long this will. It's quite a long question there in the box that's popped up. Huge Facebook F. So following on from that, have you been to a wedding where they want? Oh, from the question before about the posing for photographs. Oh, it's gone off. Sorry, I'm gonna put it back on. Been to a wedding where they want spontaneous, but the wedding is for a better description flat. So they've been to a spontaneous photographs, but the wedding's been rubbish and everyone's sitting around not doing anything, basically. So what do you do in that case?
That's confusing the two things. People at a wedding are doing stuff. You just have to look for it. It's again. So I know John. I know John's work, and I know John's a very, very good photographer at the more posed traditional kind of work, which is great. That's where his strengths are. Now, for me, the most important thing is I'm there to document the day. So if people are kind of sitting around not doing a great deal, then there are ways you can document that to make it look exciting, to make it look a little bit more interesting photographically. That's part of the challenge. There's never anything as such a thing as a flat wedding. It's just you have people with different dynamics between the groups of people. The photographs are there. You just need to look for them. It's if you go
also,
see,
but
I've heard it so many times. I get people say to me it's flat,
But at the same time, it's not the photographer's responsibility to be the entertainer and jeer up the crowd to make the photos
lively. No, that's
lively.
it, exactly.
You've got,
yeah,
and I think the issue is, I guess, sometimes if you're at a place and there's no life there, then it's very hard to feel the life yourself. I know you can, the job is and the creativity is to look for the moment. But if your moments, people sitting around. I mean, I have done a couple of weddings in the past, and realise now that I can't do those weddings. But one of them, the bride and the mother had a fight. Now, I took some photos of it because I thought it was brilliant. But obviously, they're not going to want to look back in 10 years' time, like Lisa, who, 15 years later, she ain't going to want to see a picture of herself having a old paddy with her mum in some pub just before she's getting married, right? So, but that was what the whole day was pretty much like. And at that point, I knew that my career was not in wedding photography, right? I just so I'm going to leave this to people that know what they're doing, because I can't. And it was one of those moments I can't deal with this. I felt like I had to start counselling people on what's appropriate to do, 10 minutes before you're due to get married. So that was my little story. But I think there's, you can't go in there and be like, "Whee! Look at me, I'm the photographer, everyone." And I think there's a few that do these days, Rick.
Be honest, there are some that do that these days. It's very much
because those are the ones whose Instagrams are all about themselves and how super excited they are to be working with a super brilliant couple. But let's not go down that route for now. We because I know that's going to start a whole thing. Right. So what? Okay. Here's quite a cool one. What are your I've clicked on. What are your red flags when meeting meeting potential wedding clients? What are the red flags?
If their
I don't know what that means.
Bronx.
What's that?
Surname is Bronx.
Yeah, what are the red flags? Well, no.
Red flag. There's not. I don't know. Red flags.
Well, I guess the question is, when would you say, if it wasn't forget the financial the financial aspect, but let's just say you go through a meeting with a client, they really want to use you, but what might be something that doesn't quite sit that you think I can't do this.
I don't know. It's kind of more of.
You'd do anything.
I can give you an anecdote. Probably the best thing to do is give an anecdote. I had a client 3 or 4 years ago. They'd come from one of our brides. It was a cousin. I believe it was a cousin or distant family member of one of our brides, and the bride that I had literally nearly all photojournalistic images. They were virtually photojournalistic from start to finish. And the groom from the wedding that was recommended came to me, and I would like to put you, Jeff, pictures you did for such and such were amazing. And then I had a series of questions which were basically like, we've allocated 2 hours for the formal pictures and the family groups, and when you go over to the bride's home, she wants some photographs with her bridesmaids, and she wants to go out to the garden and take some pictures there, and she wants to go, and she's going to be ready an hour before you get there.
This is just my list of why I don't shoot weddings. This is it.
Exactly.
This is all you're doing. Is this why Rick doesn't shoot weddings? That's also because I'm terrible at taking photos mainly. But this is, this is a list. This is just in my head. I'm going every time you said something like that. I'm going like ah. I'm going
Yeah.
I want to do this. I want to go out. I'm like, no, I can't do it. People. Actual people.
It's not so much that. It's not the lists so much as the fact, because everybody makes lists. That's what people do. It's not the list. It's what they were asking from me as a photographer was totally different to what I am as a photographer. And in the end, we just said to them, look, I don't think this is going to work. You're wanting me to do a style of work, which, I mean, it's in effect, it's a bit like asking, I don't know, it's a bit like asking somebody that cooks a certain way, and you want them to then change the way they cook to fit how you want to eat on the wedding day. I guess it's almost, in this case though, it's almost like asking a vegan cook to come and cook on a wedding.
Let's not go down that route. Let's not go down that route. We've got something that's popped up on Facebook. Maybe have a think about this. We'll answer at the end. But there you go. Karen, as again, says, could you list down 5 wedding photographers that you think are doing good work? Good work or excellent work?
I honestly can't. I don't look at wedding photography. I don't. I honestly, hand on heart, I have absolutely no interest whatsoever in looking at other wedding photography. If I'm doing it for a client, if I'm doing it for somebody helping with a portfolio, that's completely different. That's really good. It's a good thing to do, and so on. But to actually go and look at another wedding photographer's work to be inspired by, or to get ideas from, I've never done that. I would say I still think Joe Busink is a good friend of mine. I still think Joe Busink is still one of the best wedding photographers in the world. Still, I think he's been at that level for years. Marcus Bell, my friend Marcus Bell, again, the same thing again. But these are guys I've been around for 20 odd years. We've all grown up, if you like, together in terms of wedding photography. So I know
basically all you people you recommend are your mates, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah,
well, there would be, because that's the only time I could do.
So that's why you're never going to recommend me. Right, we've got one here. Hi from Ireland, Jeff. Have you always shot on prime lenses? No. I go backwards and forwards. I started off shooting on zooms. On 35mm, I started shooting with zooms because I could only afford one zoom and not the prime lenses. When I started shooting in low lights, started to get more and more weddings which were taking a lot longer, and so I was starting shooting for the evening. Then I started to add primes in, and most of the time on a wedding, it will probably be a combination of depending. Well, it depends. If it's during the summer, then I'll probably shoot the majority of what I shoot on a zoom just for convenience. In the winter time, it will probably more likely to be all primes because a zoom is kind of only used for a little bit of the day. When I'm shooting street, it's all primes. I shoot with 2 lenses when I'm shooting street. I don't shoot any more than that. But yeah, it's a combination of the two. To me, they're tools. It doesn't matter what you shoot with. Okay, so we've got the last one that's come up on the Crowdcast. What education do you recommend for wedding photography? I think that's the final one that's coming from Dana on Crowdcast. There's a couple more coming in on Facebook, which we're going to look at in a bit. So what education? How can you learn?
Education, right? So in wedding photography, the best way that you can go forward as a wedding photographer, well, there's 2 ways you can do it. The first thing is to expand your knowledge of photography. That's the single biggest thing you can do as a photographer in weddings, is expand your knowledge of photography. Okay, don't just look at other wedding photographers. That's the worst thing you can do, is to look at other wedding photographers, because you can't develop your own style. You can't develop your own way of looking at the world. You can't get influences into your work if you're continually looking at other wedding photographers. It's not you, it's them you're looking at. So expand. So look at photojournalism, look at landscape work, look at fashion photography, look at documentary images, even look at sort of architecture is really cool to look for. Abstract art, look at paintings, go to galleries and museums and things like that. Try and stay away from looking at other wedding photographers. Go and look for the other forms of art and so on, which can spark something within you to go forward. Other than that, the only other way, which I'm going to blow my own trumpet for just for 2 seconds, the only other way you can actually do this is to get somebody to look at your work, to actually sit down with you, find that style which is you, which suits your eye, which suits the way that you want to work, and give you the confidence to go forward and actually pursue that thing that's within you when you pick up the camera. Okay, so those two things. Art, and get people to look at your work, and don't necessarily get wedding photographers to look at your work. You can get people that.
And do you happen to know anyone that would be available, especially during this
time?
Could be available, like in lockdown, to look at your work. Do you know anyone?
Look at portfolios and critiques. No,
have you got any ideas?
No.
No one springs to mind, Jeff. Let's just do the bald head thing again, see if that works. There is another question here from Sangeet. How do you see wedding photography in the next 5 years? So I guess, should we tackle that now?
This is going to be a difficult one, because it's going to be, nobody's really sure what's going to happen
in the next 5 weeks, let alone 5 years.
Pandemic.
Right?
Yeah, it's kind of really up in the air. I would like to say, with an optimistic hat on, I would like to say.
Have you got the hat? Can you find the hat?
Well, yeah.
I'd like to see your optimistic hat. Is this why you don't shoot weddings anymore? You're not hipster enough. It's a new tight jeans and optimistic.
So yeah, tight jeans. God, dear. Anyway, what was I talking about? Okay, yeah. So optimistic. Yeah, I'd like to think that weddings will become much more about the people and the people being there and the occasion, rather than the spectacle. I think post-corona, we might be in a position where a lot of people take a good look at what's important, which is family, the people around them, their friends, and maybe that's more important than the actual spectacle of the wedding. I'd like to think that would happen. I'd also like to think that the weddings will improve. We've just, in the UK, we've just had our lowest marriage statistics, I believe, since the Second World War. The amount of people that get married, and that's obviously down to Brexit and the uncertainty of financial situations and all that stuff that's been going on. But I'd like to hopefully see it pick up. And I honestly think that do you think it's also
because people that like actual marriages, though, in terms of civil partnerships are now more of a thing they were. I mean, obviously they need photographs, but they tend not to be as bigger, as maybe as flamboyant as weddings. So do you think that, although marriage is down, civil partnerships is probably sort of coming up?
Yeah, civil partnerships have overtaken church weddings for the last few years. It was when it came through like it just blew the whole church industry away for a couple of years, and then it started to pick back up again. But I think that for me, I'm an optimist, and I believe that basically, I think the photographers that can get to the heart of that family's event, that can really show that family's event and show the connection between the people, and that doesn't necessarily mean photojournalistically. I was speaking to a photographer yesterday, looking at some work, and his work was phenomenal, but not much of it was photojournalism. A lot of it, he got a real connection between the two people in the frame. He managed to get that connection. So whichever way you do it, I think that's going to be more important than actually showing the spectacle of the event. And I'd like to think that will be probably what will happen over the next 5 years.
Cool. Should we have a quick look down at your look into the last few images you've got with us, because I know time's pressing, and I don't know where everyone's going to go tonight, but I'm off down the pub, to the lounge. So let's pop up if I can. Let's get
Don't
this.
be in misery. You've got nothing to do.
You know, I only come here for the laughs. Right, let's have a look at these. I probably left it right.
That's what Shirley said to me the other day.
All right. It's enough. Right, so that's the one from before. So
that's
let's.
the one we just finished on.
Yeah. So let's go on the next one on because I didn't want to ruin the surprise. There we go. So
yeah, that's okay. So that's very good. You've got two pictures in one there, and they almost look like
why have I done that? I don't know why that's happened.
That's amazing. That's an amazing double exposure. That's really quite.
There you go. It's gone now.
No, it's wrong.
Has it?
Yeah, you've got two pictures.
Oh, I've no idea. You know what? I've no idea what's going on. You know what? I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that, and then it's gone now, is it? Is it?
Yeah.
I've no idea.
Leave it.
I've no idea. I've no idea how that. I've no idea how that's happening.
Yeah.
No idea how that's
actually
happening.
What we've got here is two pictures. We've got a picture of a guy walking past a boarded up amusement arcade in Blackpool.
You know what? Let me do this, and then I'll do that. Is it gone now?
No. Still not. No. There you go. Right, that's the second one, but we'll stay with it. It's fine. Okay, so this is.
There you go. There you go. This is what happens. I'm going to say live telly, but it's not telly. It is live though. But this is what I have no idea what happened there. It was me because I'm trying to be clever, you see, and that's what happens when Rick tries to be clever. Can't be. So anyway, take away the actual picture rather than the three pictures that I was putting up at once before.
So this is a picture. This is the last picture I took before lockdown in Blackpool, and it was just before Johnson announced the. It's just before the weekend when everybody went silly over Mother's Day weekend and decided that they were going to be idiots on the beach and in the parks. So this was the last one. It was this little old guy walking through Blackpool. Everything's shut down, and then you've got the sign saying Stranger Things and, be afraid and all. And I kind of thought it was a sort of a bit of a cliche, but quite an interesting picture for the final sort of picture that I didn't know at the time that I'd shoot before lockdown. So if you go on to the next one.
When I've got back onto my screen because I was checking for questions. There we go. That's normal.
Right. So this is the picture I shot the first time we went out after lockdown, and me and Sarah went up to the beach. So this is about a 20-minute walk along from where we live, and there was virtually nobody on the beach. It was quite windy. You can see all the sand being whipped up in the foreground, but there was just one lone figure walking underneath the pier, which is all shut down and fenced off and so on. And it kind of really, for me, kind of summed up how a lot of people were feeling at that first sort of period of lockdown. I mean, they probably still are now, but it doesn't seem as bad now as what it was during those first 3 or 4 days, certainly with the people that were out and about, when we're walking the dog and going for our exercise and everything. So those two sort of pictures really sum up, what's kind of happening at the moment. Okay, let's go and do some questions.
That's your last. So there's your last photo. So we've kind of been through a lot of the questions that came in off the thing. So if people want to fire any onto Facebook or into the crowdcast, we can do that. But so I'm going to ask the lockdown thing. And I had a conversation today with someone who wants me to do something with lockdown, and there's obviously sort of moral issues you may have about going out and do so. But do you think that lockdown has become like a bit of a cliche almost for some terribly cliched street photographs? So photos of empty streets of big cities, New York, Paris, London, it was quite a thing to see it once maybe in the news, and then you've got people going out and documenting the lockdown by shooting empty streets is a bit like for me going out and shooting like a homeless person sitting outside Selfridges, because it's a kind of I see it as, I mean, unless it's it's lazy, right? Or is it? Do you not think it's slightly lazy photography just to go, here's an empty street, big deal. I keep knocking them out.
I think there's two things at play here. The first thing is, as photographers, you need to go out and shoot. You have to keep your eye in. You have to look for certain things. So in your hour of exercise or whatever you're doing, is to go out and go around your neighborhood and photograph things is great. It's a good thing to do. It keeps your eye in. It keeps you, it keeps you, your reflexes good. You can learn a lot just by sort of being forced to take things which you wouldn't normally take, and I would recommend that every photographer goes out their front door and walks around their block with a camera, to go and shoot a few things. I don't agree with photographers getting in a car and driving 5-10 miles to a city centre to go and photograph a street, unless they're doing it for a news agency. If it's their job, if they're a photojournalist, then that's
I think I've seen wannabe filmmakers. I think a lot of the problem is that everyone wants to have like a bit of insta fame, so they're all going off and going, I'm going to document this. The sort of phrase that seems to be used a lot every single day is unprecedented times. Everything is unprecedented times. It's kind of what it's become almost a bit of a cliche, and I think that. And I think also with street photography, and whenever I've tried to do it, and we'll lead on to another question that someone asked before actually, but I accidentally closed the thing down. For me, I can spend the whole day with my camera and not take any shots wandering around London. I don't massively feel inspired by London at all, even though I'm sure there's many places to go and capture stuff. I mean, there's the fear of getting smacked in the mouth by someone who you've taken a photo of. I think seems to be greater when you're in a big city, but I don't feel that kind of when I'm abroad or when and I tend to feel more, what's the word, like more excited about photography when I'm not in my hometown. And I sometimes look at other photographers. How do you do that? But then I don't have that connection. I don't know. I just find that if I'm going to go out and take photos, I need to have some sort of emotional connection to what I'm shooting. Because just to shoot an empty street or a homeless person or a busker, I get back and I look at it and I go, oh, what am I going to do with that? And it doesn't move me. There's nothing. But then at the same time, I see photos of a woman walking a dog across a zebra crossing and there's a shadow, and everyone sort of seems to be doing that kind of street work. It doesn't say anything to me, and I think that's just because I'm a miserable git, which you can identify with. But I don't know. There has to be some sort of connection for me to go out, and I might go out and take
But that's your personality, though. That's the way you are. It's kind of everybody's
useless.
Yeah. It's just, but the whole thing is, it's not so. I don't think so much as people doing what they're doing. I think it's the fact that people feel these days compelled to share it with everybody.
Right.
And I think that's the second issue. I think everybody these days with social media, they just feel compelled to show a photograph, no matter how good or bad or indifferent it is, on Instagram, because that's the society we're in. So what you're seeing is photographs which 10 years ago probably wouldn't even see the light of day, and most photographers would just use them as a training exercise almost. Now we have to show them on Instagram because that's how we've been programmed to use Instagram. And I said the two things are combined. It's going out and taking photographs, and I've gone out and taken photographs just to keep my eye in and and do different bits and pieces. But I wouldn't show them on Instagram because they're not relevant to anything. They're just me sort of out there with a camera.
Right. They're
shooting stuff. I don't want to add to the noise.
People just want that. People want that Insta fame now. It's become quite a thing.
Yeah.
This
is a drug. Yeah, it's addictive.
We've got John's back with a question here. We're nipping back into weddings again, just for John's sake. Fine. So I've had 2 weddings this week, moved from October to next year this week. When do you think weddings will return to... We've kind of covered this before, though. When do you think weddings will return to business as usual? I think it's one of those, how long's a piece of string?
2021. 2021.
Yeah.
I don't think...
Mid-2021.
I'd be very surprised if we get to September and everything is okay in the wedding world, even though we might
in any world. I don't think weddings are any different from any sort of public event. I mean, in terms of crowds, everything is going to be different until then. I mean, which was one of the things we were chatting earlier, was, can you have a socially distant wedding? And I suppose, limiting the numbers, seating people apart.
It's just not. It's not.
You can't have a party at the end.
I honestly think that, if we get to August, and we're out of this pretty much by August, then I still think that there may be a chance that some weddings will go ahead. But I think for anybody now, nobody's going to book a wedding for the remainder of this year. And a lot of people are looking at the options of moving it over to 2021, which is what I would do. It's a sensible thing to do. It's if your wedding isn't late summer now, then I would think that you're probably looking at moving. And then those that are late summer will probably hang on and see if we can actually, because at the end of the day, to move a wedding is a pain. It really is. So if they can have it done this year, but as John was asking, back to normal, not until 2021. I think, as in, somebody books and then the wedding goes ahead and we know there's not going to be any problems. I can't see that properly returning to normal to at least 2020.
No, I think you might be right. But I mean, what we can do though is it's a nice little segue to probably the last sort of question before we wrap up and say ta-ra. So what can we do? There might be a lot of photographers watching this. I guess there are, because that's probably who's been seeing all the promotion for it. So what can we do as photographers to prepare for life after the pandemic? I mean, they're saying it could go on for many years, but after this wave and when things slowly start to return, so what can we do in the meantime? You know, what's your take on? I mean, obviously you're doing your street stuff, but again, that's reliant on having things, you know, the people around being out and about. But
I think for me, it's two things really. You can look at it two ways. You can either say, see, part of being a photographer and part of growing as a photographer is to basically improve your education. That's the first thing. Improve your visual literacy, as I call it. Just improve how you see the world. You know, look at movies, and movies are a great way of actually improving how you see things. And you know, and for me, it's anything visual is good, whether it's painting. There are loads of online galleries now. You can go around the Museum of Modern Art and places like that online now, and that's phenomenal to go and see different things. You know, I think the other thing as well is to try and just continue to. For me, it's looking back over old work. It's looking back through the archives and looking at stuff and reassessing it. And I think the other thing that people should be doing now is if you're looking at if it has to be on the business side or marketing side, then there's no excuse now why price lists aren't done, websites aren't finished, SEO isn't sorted out, you know, portfolios aren't put together properly. We've got all the time that we need now to put all those things in.
You could also possibly
place.
and also maybe learn a new skill.
Yeah, again, yeah, you could do that as well. That's a really good thing to do.
Just keeping the focus.
You know, if you're a photographer who wants to shoot video, you want to add video into the equation.
I mean, do you know anyone that maybe offers tuition about video production, for example?
I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody that would do that. Actually,
no.
It's no, nobody.
No, I don't know anyone.
Not even somebody sat in front of a stripy screen.
That's my wallpaper. No, I don't know. Nor would I know anyone to recommend for portfolio reviews or anything like that. So you know, unfortunately we're completely out of resources at the moment, aren't we? Which is a shame. So I think we're there, mate. I think we've gone through all the questions. We've talked about all your work and your transition. But in today's society, that means a whole new thing. But it's been. I think for us, we've been pretty good in holding back some of the things that could have appeared in conversation live. So I think we're quite restrained. So I've got to probably turn off the camera and have just a bout of 40 minutes of Tourette's, basically. So just sit in my room with the lights off now. Just swear. Yeah, that was my plan, to swear before and swear after, just not during. But that, I think, so Jeff, thank you so much for being the inaugural guest. With your rattling microphone.
Guinea pig, mate. We were known as the guinea pig, not the inaugural guest.
The guinea pig. Well, you know, it's a time to learn new skills and to further our what's the word? Whatever it is. So I was going to say sow our seed far and wide, but that's also not what I really should be saying. But look, Mike says good job, guy. Look, we should put him up on screen there. Look, there we go.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Mike. Mike's still alive, which is always good to see. Never responds to any emails, but he's alive on Facebook. There we go.
Oh.
Anyway, Jeff, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
It's been fun, and for everyone else, once the broadcast ends, this will be on a replay, and you can flick back and do it. I think it's also on YouTube. I'm sure Jeff will send the link out afterwards, and whatever the hell Twitch is, probably some 14-year-old gamers in Singapore have been watching this in between Call of Duty or something. I'm not sure what Twitch is. I think it's something that I don't know. I don't know what it is. What's Twitch? Is it a thing that's a platform for gamers that use to show Fortnite? I don't know what it is, but I'm on it. We got that, and we're all good. So, Just before we go, though, we are doing a little thing with Professional Photo Magazine. And if you click on the thing at the bottom there, if you're in Crowdcast, if you look down the bottom, there's a little flashing green box that says 3 for 1 offer. So if you click that, it will take you through to a link where, as is a sign of the times, but Photo Professional Magazine, excellent magazine, really good content. I'm not just saying that because I write stuff for it as well, but it really is great content. And they have 3 for 1 offer, so you can buy 1 edition and get 3 or something like that. So, but it's digital, so you can get it all on your iPad and all that kind of stuff. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you. Sorry, Mike. Mike said, Mike's. I'm going to put that up on screen because there you go. Harsh. And on that note, on that bombshell,
I can't control him, Mike. He's totally his own person.
So I'm going rogue. The rogue Bronx. But on that note, Jeff, thanks so much, and see you all very soon.
You should not go out. Stay at home. Start working from home. Stop non-essential contact. Protect our NHS. Stay at home. And save lives.